You're listening to Bark and Wag's 15-Minute Vet Talk. Each week, your host, Polly Requa, interviews veterinarians and individuals in the pet industry from across the nation answering pet questions. Bark and Wag podcast is produced weekly for your enjoyment, and show notes can be found at barkandwag.com under the podcast tab. That's BARKNWAG.com. Please remember to subscribe to Bark and Wag 15-Minute Vet Talk.
Thank you for listening to Bark and Wag 15-Minute Vet Talk. Bark and Wag is dedicated to protecting our dogs through advocacy, education, and supporting like-minded dog lovers by selling custom pet products. Bark and Wag is excited to announce our new partnership with a Colorado hemp farm to produce a line of CBD products for your pets. Bark and Wag has CBD pet tincture available in 300, 750, 1200, and 2400 milligrams. Bark and Wag CBD is pet safe, no THC, it's made in the USA, and is CO2 extracted. Please check out Bark and Wag's website, barkandwag.com. That is BARK, to see our line of CBD and awesome merchandise. We love pooch ideas for podcasts and merchandise, so anytime send an email to Polly at barkandwag.com with your suggestions.
Welcome to Bark and Wag 15-Minute Vet Talk. I'm your host, Polly Requa. Today we're talking to Cristi, owner of Natural Pet Wellness. Welcome, Cristi.
Hey, Polly. Thanks for having me on your show.
I wanted to have you back on the podcast to talk about animal communication.
Excellent. Excellent. That's an area I know a lot about.
Do tell.
Well, I think the first thing when I tell people that I am able to communicate with animals and that that's a service that I provide and that they could get for their pets, a lot of people want to know, like, why would you want to talk with your animal? And I know you have dogs, Polly, and animals. Are there ever times you want to ask your animal a question?
Oh, yes.
Well, a lot of people like to know, if they're happy is usually the first question. Like, are they happy, right? Or, why are they acting a certain way? Sometimes people want to communicate with their animal when there's a behavior change, or if the people are moving or there's big changes happening in their life, they want their family pet to know about that so that that transition is better. They also, if they've adopted a dog or a cat, they want to know if there's any past trauma or any anxiety that's keeping their pet from living their best life. And a lot of times owners reach out too when their pet is nearing the end of their life and they know their animal is going to transition soon. And they want to be able to provide the best quality of life for what that pet has left, and a feeling of calm and reassurance. And most importantly, in every situation, the owner always wants to tell their pet how much they love them and care for them.
Sure. So when you are doing any type of animal communication, is it online so that you can handle people nationwide, or is it more local?
It's both. So just like your cell phone works or your TV works when you turn it on, you don't question that those, electrical currents are going through the sky above your head, making your equipment at home work, right? Energy work and communication is a form of energy. All of that can happen over time and space. So you can be in a different country, a different state. You could be in your own home and down the street from me, and I could still connect and communicate with your pet and get the message across to them.
So how did you get involved in animal communication?
I started working with animal energy work first. So like Reiki, the energy work I got training in is called Healing Touch for Animals. And there's some communication that happens naturally when you do energy work with an animal, and you build a bond and a trust with that animal while you're doing energy work. And I found that I could start giving information to them while doing energy work. And they got very calm and relaxed, and they were very receptive to that. And so there's actually, just like anything you learn, you don't know what you don't know, right? So until you're trained or learn about something, you don't know if you can do it or not. And I took it very seriously when I signed up for an animal communication course. It was a 6-week long course with a very talented and gifted animal communicator. And I had so many questions for her before I even started, because it's a real responsibility. I wanted to make sure that I was able to help animals. I also didn't want a situation where it would be like, Dr. Doolittle and he's hearing all the animals talk to him. I wanted to be able to do a hike and not have all the squirrels and deer and birds yelling at me, right? I didn't know what would happen if I learned how to use this skill, because everybody has access and ability to communicate at a deeper level if they're willing to take the time to learn how to do that and to slow down and open their mind for that. And like I said, I really had a lot of concerns about how does this happen if I allow myself to learn and understand how to talk with animals, especially my own animals. Like, do I want to know what they have to say? Because I'm kind of in charge right now. I'm the human, I'm top of the chain, and I want them to do what I want them to do. But at the same time, when you learn to communicate with your animal, you have a much greater understanding that it is a two-way street, that they are living their life with you and you're living your life with them. And they do experience everything that we do as we live through our life. And so I took this communication course. I have, her name is Diana Gogan, and I have her information I could leave later. So I was fortunate that I had a very good teacher, and it's amazing. It just happens. Images start coming through. For some people, they get smells or they get sounds. They can get just different senses come through when you're talking with an animal. And animals are able to communicate on such a different level, and it's very easy for them to communicate with their brain, right? Anybody that owns a cat knows that, like, your cat knows things, right? Your cat, right. They just stare at you and you're like, oh yeah, they know what I'm thinking. But it just happens, and it's hard to describe. But as you allow it, images or thoughts come into your head. And the challenge I find is trying to translate it into something that I understand, that I can tell the human. And sometimes it gets lost in the translation there. I've also had to learn to trust that whenever I get an image or a thought that comes through while I'm talking with an animal, that even if I don't understand it, I usually say it anyways, and the owner will understand what that's about. I've had that happen on almost every occasion, that I'm like, I don't know, I'm seeing like a number 4 on a house plate, and I don't know what that means, but I'm sharing that because that's what your horse wanted me to tell you. And they're like, oh my gosh, he looks across at stall number 4 and that's where his friend's at, So sometimes it just takes even saying the things that come through and having the trust and not doubting that it is coming from the animal.
Cool.
So yeah.
So when you're doing animal communication reading, what usually does the pet owner ask about their pet?
It's funny. A lot of times people think it's going to be this groundbreaking information, and animals don't have a lot of drama. The humans have the drama. The animals, they really don't relive the past or linger on past things. They truly do live in the moment. And I'm not saying that they forget, but I'm saying they've learned to move past it and not let it affect their current present moment. Animals are very in the present moment. And that's why we love them, right? Because they help us be grounded and live in the moment. But they don't linger on things. And a lot of times it's a human that wants to know, like, well, was it a bad experience? And where were you before this? And was this awful? And what happened? And the animals really don't even like talking about those past things unless you force them to. And they really don't dwell on that. So a lot of times it's asking if they want something different in their life. If they have a strong opinion about something, it could be about their food, about their health. I get a lot of questions about pain, like, is my animal in pain? or with their food. Like, are they allergic to this? Is this good for their body? Should I change what they're eating? Why are they eating certain things? And a lot of times when I start communicating with an animal, I usually deliver the human's message, the owner's message. The humans have the agenda, right? They want their dog to stop barking at the neighbor, or they want their dog to stop chewing the couch or peeing in the house, or they have a whole laundry list of behaviors or things that they want changed. And so we usually start with that list, and then at the end I always ask if there's anything that the animal wants to show me or tell me. And I work with one horse, and he hardly lets me step away. Like, he's like, yeah, I got one more thing to say. Okay, I got one more thing to show you. Yes, I have one more thing. So he's chatty and he likes to talk, and I'm done, but he's like, no, let me keep telling you I have more to say, which is funny. Like, I love talking with him. He's a very good horse. But yeah, it's more of checking in of where they're at, giving them the message. I definitely have had animals stand up and leave, because sometimes the owner gets nitpicky and nobody likes to be nagged at, not even animals. And the owner will say, oh, tell him one more thing. And then, okay, yeah, tell him this too. Oh, I just thought of this. Tell him this also. And a lot of the tell him one more thing, those things can sometimes be perceived as a nagging or a negative. And I've literally had animals that get up and walk away because they're like, I'm done with this.
Oh, that's funny.
And I think it's important to remember that just like humans, animals have free will. We can talk to them, we can give them information, but ultimately they're going to do what they want. And
right.
the good news is that our pets want to please us and they want to make us happy. So 9.5 times out of 10, an animal is going to try to do what you've asked them to do. And they're going to try to make those changes, or they're going to try to live more harmoniously, or whatever it is we're talking about. But every now and then, there's definitely some animals that are like, nope, I don't care. You can talk to me all you want, and I'm not going to do that. So,
have you ever worked with an owner whose pet is lost?
So I have been trained in that. That was part of the training I went through. And I have done that. I've done that a couple of times, and it's not something, it's the same thing with also communicating with animals that have passed on. Mm-hmm. Lost pets and pets that have passed on are not areas that I personally feel comfortable using my skills with. It's not saying that I can't or that I couldn't be more proficient at it if I practiced it more, but my focus, because I tie all of my animal communication in with energy work, I always do an energy session with the animal first to help them be balanced and grounded. And then I do the communication. So I focus on animals that are here and now in the present, that have caretakers that are trying to help them live a better life at the very moment. So I do work with shelters. And I've helped a lot of animals in shelters, and the caretaker is maybe the foster family or the owner of the shelter. And then a lot of my clients said they want energy work for their animal. The communication just is part of that.
So can you give us an example?
Yeah, some of my favorite ones. I recently, this past fall, I worked with several beehives, and the company wanted the bees to understand that winter was coming and the preparation that was going into place for them, so that they could have better chances to make it through the winter alive, so that when they go check the hives in the spring, those bees are alive and can do their thing for the rest of the summer. Because these bees, they transport bees in from like California and stuff like that. And California has a very different winter than we do. I actually have a blog on my website that talks about that whole experience, but it was amazing to feel the differences of the hives, to understand that the queen bee really is in charge of that hive. It was just a fascinating experience overall. But
Wow,
I
that's
also
really
did.
neat.
Yeah, it was really fun. And then I did some animal communication and energy work on a dog whose owners were getting married, and they're older. They're an older couple and found marriage later in life. And they'd been already moved in and living together, but the dog was kind of upset because things were just changing and there was a lot of excitement and activity in the house, and he didn't understand what was happening. And so I communicated with him about their wedding and explained what a wedding was. Like, dogs don't know what a wedding is, right? So once I explained to him about the tradition that his owners were partaking in by getting married, he was like, I'm part of this family. How come I'm not part of that tradition? So when his owners returned, I explained this to them, and they were still in their wedding garb. And I asked if they would do a small ceremony and include their dog. And I officiated. We just did like a 10-minute little ceremony, but they all agreed to be part of each other's family and each other's life. And the dog was completely happy, and all his stress went away, and he started eating again, and he was relaxed and happy. And so he just wanted to be included in all of those traditions and festivities as part of the family.
Oh, that's wonderful. That is, people have said that when you're leaving the house, that, you should let the dog know you're coming back. And so it is kind of interesting.
You're absolutely right. And I think the parting thing would be that anybody can communicate with their animal. Yes, absolutely hire an animal communicator if there's a bigger message you're trying to convey to your dog. But on your daily basis, send love from your heart, and they understand that. Talk to them normally about and share your day or any changes, just as if you would talk to a small child or if you would talk to your spouse about your day. They may not understand the exact words you're saying, but they'll understand the intent and the meaning of what you're saying. And it also will reassure them that they'll be cared for. They're always concerned if they're going to be fed, right? So that's a big concern for animals. So to say that you're going to be fed and you're going to be safe, and to always tell them that you're going to return. And these few simple steps go a long way in strengthening your bond and communicating with your pet. Or you can always find a good teacher like I did and take an animal communication class.
Yeah, well, that's wonderful. So how do people find out if they want to contact you?
Yes, they can go to my website, which is naturalpetwellnessco.com. Or they can reach out to me by email or by phone, and both of those numbers are on my website as well.
Great. Well, that's wonderful. Thank you for being on the podcast, and we look forward to having you back.
Thank you, Polly. Have a great day.
Thank you for listening to Bark and Wag's 15-Minute Vet Talk. If you like what you just heard, we hope you'll pass along our web address, www.barkandwag.com, to your friends and other pet owners. Have a pressing question for a veterinarian? Ask your question at barkandwag.com under the podcast tab. This has been a KFR production. Join us next time for another edition of Bark and Wag's 15-Minute Vet Talk.